and welcome to another episode of the Use Your Power Show. Use Your Power is brought to you by Rev Up Texas. Rev Up stands for Register, Educate, and Vote. Use Your Power. We are a nonpartisan collaboration of organizations that want to increase the power of the disability vote. Today, we have some very special guest speakers that I will announce in a moment, but first I want to self-describe myself. I am a middle-aged white female wearing a sweater dress because it's freezing in Dallas, with a white background and a fall autumn picture. Today we have Cathy Cranston and Nancy Crowther. They are both with the Personal Attendant Coalition of Texas, and they are community organizers. Welcome, both of you, and I'm going to give you a minute to self-describe yourself.
Thank you, Julie. My name is Cathy Cranston, and I am a middle-aged woman, Mexicana, and I have dark, black salt and pepper hair, wearing brown-rimmed glasses, and I'm sitting in my kitchen, and there are a bunch of tchotchkes on the wall, and that's who I am.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Crowther, and I work closely with Cathy Cranston. I am a white woman with a very bright white gray hair. I am wearing a very orange t-shirt, long sleeves, because it is cold. And in the background is part of my office at home, which also focuses in on a raise it button. And we'll talk more about that later in our podcast.
Thank you both for self-describing. I want to say that I work for a Center for Independent Living up by Dallas, Reach of Plano, and I have collaborated with Pact, Personal Attendant Coalition of Texas, numerous times because we really focus on nursing home diversion and the deinstitutionalization of people with disabilities. And we are often fighting the institutional bias that society has towards people with disabilities. So I am honored to have both of you on today and very excited. And for those that don't know, what is the Personal Attendant Coalition of Texas? And you guys can just jump in and both answer. I'll let you two fight it through.
Well, and this is Cathy speaking. Pact, Personal Attendant Coalition of Texas, was formed in 2005, and we are a coalition of community attendants and people with disabilities and our supporters, and we advocate for higher wages, our attendants, higher wages and benefits, and our attendants those that work under Medicaid funded programs start at $8.11. And I'm going to turn it over to Nancy to continue if she cares to expound on.
Hi, I'm on the consumer end of this. I'm a consumer with a disability that relies for the last 40 years on attendant services. And working alongside Cathy with Pact, I have grown to see the inequity and the low wages that our attendants get. And I am now feeling the crunch of that momentum, because what's happening is lower wages make people not want to work for you. And I've always been very fortunate while I've been recruiting and retaining my attendants. But now with the low wages that finally people are starting to recognize, we're not getting the recruitment and the retention we need to support people with disabilities in the community. And that's a big threat for people who want to maintain their independence within the community with our community attendants.
What would you say are the legislative issues and priorities that PACT has in the state of Texas?
Well, and this is Cathy again. As Nancy was saying, the one of the biggest issue, of course, is our wages. We've got to bring up our minimum, that base wage of $8.11 to $15 an hour. We really have, our state legislators have neglected this workforce for multiple decades, and people that utilize home and community-based services are struggling and cannot find attendants to come in to work in their homes, and so they're at risk, and some are becoming institutionalized or re-institutionalized because they cannot find attendants to work for them. The other things that we're working on, of course, is the recruitment and retention piece, which part of that is the wage piece, as well as creating network adequacy for this workforce. We're working on a Bill of Rights for our community attendants. Another piece that we will be working on is creating a minimum wage for this workforce. And another piece, which I think is part of the recruitment and retention, is amending our state plan. And Nancy, do you want to talk about that, what that is?
Yes, I'd like to cover 2 points. This is Nancy, and the amending the state Medicaid plan involves the use of employing spouses to be employees as they provide attendant care to their other spouse. Right now, a lot of the programs have that opportunity, but I think we might be able to fill in a lot of vacant attendant services by being able to hire the spouses within the programs. And it just takes a simple amendment, and I think we'll be able to cover or at least help cover a lot of attendant care needs out there. The other point I wanted to make, which has been kind of near and dear to my heart, and I've worked on this project before, is a statewide registry. I would love to have a match.com for the attendant and consumer world, where we would be able to recruit, hire, have people apply, match people up with attendants, qualified, of course, and it would be up to the consumer to interview and all that jazz, but you put out ads out there and you get nothing. But if you have a centralized registration program, like for example, the match.com, I believe it would really help open up some more opportunities for us.
Those are some fantastic points and goals. I would like it if you could both tell us, what are your thoughts, your personal thoughts on the recent Texas legislative sessions?
Well, this is Cathy, and we just finished up, well, in May, we finished up our, I believe it was the 87th legislative session. And unfortunately, our decision makers did not do any funding for the wage piece for our community attendants. And then, we had several special sessions. The third special session that ended in, I believe, in September, there was a bill that was passed, Senate Bill 8, that had $178.3 million. that would go toward a wage piece. It's not a whole lot really, but it's going to be divided into 3 different populations, one being the community attendants, one the assisted living, the developmental disabilities, intermediate care facilities, and I'm forgetting, the home health agencies. And when you're looking at dividing those monies, which is not a whole lot, it's not even going to address our need for recruiting and retaining, because it's going to be pennies depending upon how it's divided. And then also on top of all of that, the process of applying for it and who's going to make those decisions. It's just been pretty, our state legislature has really neglected this workforce. And we, not just the workers, the consumers that utilize the services are suffering. And I hate to use that word, that word suffering, but we cannot find workers. I advocate for people with disabilities too, and it's pretty horrific what's happening out in the community. But Nancy, I'll be quiet. Nancy, go ahead, and you want to expound on.
Share your thoughts.
Yeah.
I wanted to just say that discouragement is probably too nice of a word right now, but I'm thoroughly discouraged and at the legislators who in their lifetime will need attendant care or will know somebody who provides attendant services. And then they'll be aghast at the wages they're getting. And, it'll be a big surprise. And we've been doing this for years. And it just ceases to amaze me that our legislators seem heartless or ignorant, or I just don't know where their soul is, because this impacts people's lives big time. And frankly, Julie and our listening audience, if I can't have attendant care in my home, my only alternative is going to be a nursing home. Strip me of every right I have because you didn't listen to what our needs were. And that's pretty much what it's like on the consumer end. See, we cover the whole state. We've heard so many stories, and it's so, that's why we keep doing it, because we know it's a big problem, and we're going to keep nicking away at it until they hear us and start to understand where the needs are.
So would you say, based on what I've heard, that Texas is in a state of crisis, that our attendant care pool is collapsing at the same time that Texans are getting older and more in need of services? Are we in a crisis mode?
This is Cathy. We absolutely are in a crisis. Definitely. In fact, this last, during the summer, several, probably 10 organizations that represent personal people with disabilities and attendants, we all got together. And traditionally, we don't always unify, but we unified on this point, which is that we are in crisis and that our long-term services and support, specifically the community infrastructure, is crumbling. And that's where we pushed together to try to get those monies designated for our wage piece. It wasn't enough. We got a little bit in the third session, but it's not enough. And so we definitely are in crisis.
And from the consumer end, I can say wholeheartedly that I have personally not been able to find a weekend attendant. Now, come on. Weekends usually, are first on everybody's agenda. But then if I can't find a weekend person, there's something wrong. And now we also have some long-term advocates that are calling into Pact saying, I'm having trouble finding an attendant. And we're all like, really? Because the well is dry. And we need to really step it up, or we're going to see the crumbling of home and community-based services. And I think it's really up to our voices, our advocacy, and our strength to build up our attendance in our community.
You talked about the legislative priorities that Pact has, and you've talked about the crisis that Texas has. Do you think our Texas legislators have this on the agenda as a crisis, as a priority?
This is Cathy. No, they do not. And that is why the infrastructure is crumbling. We have been reiterating the same statements over and over again for years. And personally, that is why we need to vote, and we need to vote some of these people out that have turned their head away from what's happening. Many of our legislators have been there for years and they know what's going on, but they have chosen to not make this a priority. And we must hold them accountable. And one of the ways we can is to vote and use our power.
So I was wondering if you could give our audience a clear picture of who are the attendants that are dealing with all this. What is our attendant pool made up of?
Sure, this is Cathy. And the majority of our home and community-based workforce, our attendants here in Texas, are women, are female. They're 88% of our community attendants in Texas are women. We are people of color. 76% of our workforce that work in this arena are people of color. We don't have any benefits, no health insurance, no vacation, no sick leave. Our median age is 50 years old, and we start our community attendance at $8.11. That's who we are.
What do you think is the draw that pulls those demographics to this work?
I personally think it's the passion for other human beings. People, and especially women, have a heart for this work. They want to help. And they're just, it takes a kind person that understands the independence that a person needs, and they just lend a hand. I wanted to fill in on some of the attendant demographics, because over the last 40 years, mine have been students, part-time, which has been great because it helps them go through college. They have been retired nurses, which is mine right now. I've had a lot of just people who answered ads, who were looking for a position just like this in their life. And it was like, you sounded perfect. I would love to work for your position. And I'm like, wow, it's just, and by the way, I've had the majority of people who have been my attendants have been females. And I've had 3 males in my entire litany of attendants that have worked with me. So the demographics are right on, and we're reaching out to try to get, no offense, Kathy, but a younger generation.
Right on. That's true. Yep.
we need the younger generation to understand the need for the passion in their heart to help somebody, and that's all they're doing. It's nothing medical, it's nothing, it doesn't take a scientist or a rocket scientist, but if you can follow directions and it works. And sometimes you have to train them, sometimes you don't.
And I just wanted to mention, this is Cathy again. One of the wonderful things that attracted me is definitely it helped me pay my way through college. I went to the University of Houston, so I worked as an attendant and went to school. But also once I married and I had my daughter, it created the flexibility for me to be involved at the school for my daughter, with my daughter, but also to work. And so there's a lot of flexibility in working as a community attendant. You can decide how many people you want to work with, or you can work with one person, you can work with 2 or 3. Unfortunately, you have to work with multiple people in order to make a living. So, but I just wanted to put that forward about the flexibility in the hours. So.
Do you have any other thoughts that you really love to tell our listeners or potential attendants right now?
If I may, this is Nancy, and I, as a consumer, would really like to engage the consumers into fighting for their attendance, for the people that help them, who are working with them, and who get, they're shy. And if you can be a voice for them, call your legislators, tell them what the situation is. You have a legislator in every part of the state you can call and be involved in. You can make calls, you can make emails. Nothing's going to happen to you. Your program's not going to get cut if you think you're being threatened. No, you're helping to build the labor force for the attendants and to receive good care out there. So use your voice.
And
That's good advice.
And I would just briefly say, our attendants need to do that as well. Empower yourselves, make those calls, and consumers, encourage your attendants to get involved, because who better knows what's going on than the attendant? The attendant knows, and we need to use our voices to let the legislators know that we matter, we count, and we need to raise our wage.
We need to use our power.
Absolutely.
How can our listeners get involved? What can they do?
What they can do is initially they can reach out to us at 512-442-0252 and leave their information. That phone line goes to Adaptive Texas and Pact. We are housed in the same building and we work together hand in hand because we depend on each other. So that's what you can do initially.
Thank you both for your advocacy and for using your power and for encouraging everyone listening to use your power. There's also the ability that you can go to the Rev Up Texas website. You can sign up to be a member of Rev Up. You can like and subscribe to these podcasts, these shows. They're very educational. You can donate. You can be an informed citizen in Texas, helping to register, educate, and vote. Use your power. Thank you both for coming on to our show today. This is very important information, and Texas needs you. We have to be successful with this. We have to be successful.
Thank you so
use
much,
your power.
Julie.
Thank you, Julie.